Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Luis Fernandez. We've reported on a lot of stories in the past few weeks involving data centers. If you're a consistent listener of the Daily Download, you might remember one we did just last week. Now, there's a reason for that. As technology grows, North Carolina finds itself right in the middle of the action. Tarboro and the Edgecombe County area in general, Apex, Person County, potential data centers there, and the public's reaction to them have been all over the headlines. WRAL climate change reporter Liz McLaughlin joins us now with some more perspective on the environmental impacts of data centers. Liz, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, when we say data center, just for those who don't know, can you describe what they are and what they do?
Data centers essentially are the backbone of the internet. They're giant warehouses filled with rows of servers that process and store information. So every photo you upload, every online transaction, every AI chatbot request, it all runs through these servers. And they run 24/7. They require constant cooling to keep that equipment from overheating, which is why they use so much electricity and often a lot of water, especially in warm climates like ours.
The example that you highlight in your story is a planned Tarboro data center that was ultimately rejected. Energy Storage Solutions, the company trying to build this, said it would bring in 500 jobs, $6.4 billion in investment, and millions in new tax revenue. So why turn that down? Why reject it?
Sure, on paper, right? Those promises sound transformative, especially for a small rural town. But residents raised big concerns. 500,000 gallons of water a day for cooling, noise, air quality, and whether the site right next to homes was appropriate. There was also skepticism about whether the long-term benefits would match the hype. You know, hundreds of jobs sound great, but most would be specialized tech positions, not necessarily available to people that already live there. So in the end, Tarboro Town Council voted to reject it, showing how much weight these communities are really putting on the environmental and quality of life impacts.
It wasn't a very tight vote either. They rejected it pretty soundly, right?
Exactly, because there was a very loud, opposition to it.
Let's go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we will continue our conversation on data centers. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. We're talking with WRAL climate change reporter Liz McLaughlin about the surge of potential data centers in North Carolina. So, Liz, when we look at the data centers and the different things that we kind of have to parcel through, one of the big conversation pieces is the power element. Data centers use a lot of electricity, correct?
Yes, a ton.
So what does that do to the power grid infrastructure in the area? How does that work? Who pays for that?
So, yeah, that scale is huge. A single 300 megawatt data center, you might hear that 300 megawatts. What does that really mean? That can use as much power as tens of thousands of homes. So we're talking about adding another city to the grid, essentially. So utilities may have to build out entire new power plants or transmission lines to meet that demand. And traditionally, those costs are spread across all ratepayers. In this new state law, Senate Bill 266, it's the same one that actually took away the carbon cutting deadline for Duke. It actually shifts more of those costs onto households, even as large users like data centers pay less. So in one recent analysis, they found that essentially residents, you and I, would be paying for about half of Duke's purchasing power, but we're only using about 40%. So that translates to about $87 million more on our plate each year. So that's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot. Let's talk about the water. You mentioned it earlier that was one of the concerns of folks in Tarboro who were not excited about the potential of this data center. What's this water situation with data centers?
So, yeah, many of these data centers use what's called evaporative cooling, which can mean hundreds of thousands, even millions of gallons of water each day. For a town like Tarboro, residents worried whether the local system could even handle that and what that might mean for their long-term water supply. But some projects, like the one proposed near Apex, say they'll actually use treated wastewater instead. So it could be part of a system already in place and basically using water that already, is kind of dirty or, it's not necessarily taking it right out of the tap. But water strain is still a reoccurring concern.
All these companies wouldn't be investing in data center infrastructure for no reason, right? What are companies like Apple, Google, OpenAI, NVIDIA, and energy storage solutions. What are they saying about the pro of this growth, reasons why it should be brought into this area?
Sure. And I mean, everyone who uses ChatGPT every day, right, that uses the internet, I mean, this is lucrative for a reason. It's because it's in demand. It's because it's something that we need essentially as an evolving and innovative society. So the demand for AI, cloud computing, and streaming is just exploding. So companies say we need more data centers to keep up with that. They point to job creation, local tax revenue, and strengthening tech ecosystems. And some even highlight sustainability commitments, like Google's deal in Nevada to power its centers with geothermal energy, as proof that the growth can actually align with climate goals. But critics argue the pace of construction and cost shifting really raise red flags about whether communities see the same benefits as companies. And here in our state, I think it's pretty clear our legislature isn't prioritizing our climate goals by rolling back deadlines, by just basically enabling Duke to delay retiring power plants, things like that. So there is a lot of concern, especially in our state, that the growth is going to also lead in a growth in fossil fuel reliance.
Interesting. So what comes next? You mentioned, our reliance on so many of these technologies. Something tells me that the data center question isn't going away anytime soon.
It's going to be a long debate. It's something that we're not just figuring out here in the state, but nationally too. And in North Carolina, we'll likely see more proposals. Apex is still considering the New Hill Digital Campus, and developers are eyeing other sites too. Lawmakers are debating alternatives, though, like the Ratepayer Protection Act, which would shift more of the costs directly to data centers and create a planning commission to kind of help oversee this. Nationally, as part of a bigger story, the U.S. is projected to see a 25% jump in electricity demand by 2030.
Wow.
Much of it tied to data centers. So the big question going forward, will this growth drive investment in clean energy and innovation, or lock us into more fossil fuel plants and higher bills for families?
Interesting. And like you said, I don't think this is changing anytime soon. So be sure to stay tuned to WRAL as we do more coverage of, potential data centers in the area. But for now, that is WRAL climate change reporter Liz McLaughlin. Liz, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Luis Fernandez. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.